Boat Building, Phippsburg, Maine, with your host, Bob Keys.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Bob Keys, and I am the editorial director at Colby College and also the chair of the Maine Arts Commission. And this summer, I had the pleasure of hosting for the Phippsburg Historical Society a conversation about the boat building tradition in Phippsburg, and specifically in Small Point, Sabasco, and West Point. And we didn't record that conversation, but we're trying to recreate it just a bit here. I'm had the pleasure of speaking recently with our panelists, and those interviews will follow my brief introduction. So, as we know, Phippsburg is widely regarded for building ships that cross the ocean. But we're talking today specifically about the boats that stayed in the coves and harbors close to home. The wooden boats built with local lumber by local boat builders for local people. They're a working craft for people who have made their lives on the water, and pleasure craft for people for whom being on the water is a way of life. I wrote about the arts in Maine for 20 years, and when I left the newspaper to work at Colby College in 2022, I was asked to join the Maine Arts Commission, and I'm now chair of the commission. And one of the things we like to talk about at the Maine Arts Commission is that blurred line between art and craft and art and culture. And in Maine, especially, art, craft, and culture are one and the same. So the point of our conversation is simply to talk about a local culture that defines a community. And in the art world, we talk a lot about the artists coming to Maine and the allure of Maine to the outside world. It is my opinion that the boats that we're talking about in this conversation and the people who built them are among the reasons that Maine culture is so appealing to the broader world. This culture, the culture of boat building and the culture of the coast, and more importantly, the authentic culture of a community, is why artists like John Marin and Ernest Haskell and countless others came here and decided to stay. It's no coincidence that when N.C. Wyeth arrived in Port Clyde in 1920, one of the first things he did was begin painting pictures of the local dories. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Charlie Gooms, a local boat builder, and Alton Wallace, another local boat builder. Charlie was born in December 1890, and he died at age 78 in May 1969. He was born in Phippsburg, and he was a boat builder whose legacy is deeply intertwined with the maritime history of Casco Bay. He operated with no formal navigational architectural training, but Gomes developed an exquisite self-taught method of boat building. He was renowned for his artistic eye and his ability to craft boats with perfect lines. And that is a skill he practiced by carving solid wooden half hulls by eye before meticulously sectioning them to create full-size forms. Charlie is famously associated with the Casco Bay Hampton, a rugged and durable wooden lobster boat design that he built from 1902 into the 1950s. His Hamptons were pure workhorses, built to withstand the harsh New England seas, and they became a regional icon. His work showcased his versatility from sailboats to skiffs to powerboats. Charlie's simple, honest approach to boat building focused on function and durability above all else. His influence extended beyond his own lifetime, with later builders like Dick Pulsifer continuing the tradition of the Hampton design, ensuring that Charlie's legacy as a master craftsman of the Maine's working waterfront would be forever preserved. And just a note about Dick Pulsifer, born in 1930, has worked out of his yard in Brunswick for over 4 decades. He built an impressive fleet of 113 of the classic Hampton boats, meticulously adhering to the original round bilge design pioneered by Charlie. Dick's Hamptons, known for their rugged construction and graceful lines, became a gold standard for lobster boats. Dick, of course, was more than a builder. He was a custodian of a tradition and a design, and he ensured the timeless elegance and the utility of the Hampton endured for a new generation of mariners. Charlie Gooms is also associated with the Small Point One design, the sailboat. It was designed in the late 1930s by renowned naval architect W. Starling Burgess. The Small Point One design was created for the summer community of Small Point. The goal was to have a standardized class of boat for racing that was both simple to sail and sturdy enough for the challenging conditions of the local waters. The key characteristics of the Small Point 1 design simply is the ease of handling and its idealness for single-handed sailing or for a very small crew. The boats are known for their long keel, for their wood and later fiberglass construction, I should say, and their compact size. With a length of about 19 feet, they are perfectly suited for the tight and often busy waters of the local harbor. Today, the Small Point 1 design continues to be an active racing class. A fleet of these sailboats is lovingly maintained by the summer residents and are actively raced every season out of the Small Point Yacht Club. It's a humble club without a clubhouse located in the harbor, and the continued presence is a testament to the enduring appeal of Starling Burgess' practical and elegant design, as well as a strong sense of community among local sailing enthusiasts. Just a note about William Starling Burgess. He was quite an interesting character. He was born on Christmas Day in Boston in 1978. He was married 5 times in his 68 years. He was a yacht designer, an aviation pioneer, and a naval architect. He was awarded the highest prize in aviation, the Collier Trophy, in 1915, just 2 years after Orville Wright won it. And in 1933, he partnered with Buckminster Fuller to design and build the radical Dynamax car. Between 1930 and 1937, he created 3 America Cup J-class yachts. I should say, winning J-class yachts. In 1935, he became a consulting naval architect for the Aluminum Company of America, and he had an office at the Bath Iron Works, where he promoted the use of corrosion-resistant alloys for ships. And during his time in Bath, he found time and the inspiration to design the Small Point 1 design, which Charlie Goombs soon began building. We're also going to talk about Alton Wallace. Born in 1909, Alton died in 1995. He was celebrated for his role in developing and popularizing the West Point skiff, a classic workboat. Born and raised in the village of West Point, Wallace spent his entire life by the sea, and his deep, intuitive understanding of local waters shaped his craft. Lacking formal training, he relied on an extraordinary artistic eye and decades of hand-on experience to design his boats. Over nearly 5 decades, Alton built more than 200 of his rugged skiffs. The West Pointer, with its rounded bow, flat stern, and remarkable stability, has become a favorite craft for inshore fishing among lobstermen and fishermen up and down the coast, supplanting those traditional dories we spoke of at the beginning. He would often allow other fishermen to take measurements from his boats so they could build their own versions. This willingness to share his design helps cement the West Point skiff's place in Maine's maritime heritage. Today, his legacy lives on, with modern builders still using his original lines to create updated versions of his classic design. His tradition is carried on in the modern world by a few different Phippsburg boat builders. Richard Nichols began building West Pointers in the early 2000s. Alton built Nichols' father an original 18-foot West Pointer in 1968, and Nichols has continued that tradition. Similarly, so did my brother John, who we'll hear from in this discussion. He began building West Pointers in the late 1980s and continued for a decade or more. Like Richard, my brother John was inspired to build West Pointers because of a boat that Alton built for our family back in the 1950s or 60s. My brother John spent his summers in West Point as a kid and eventually settled in the Bath area with his family. After many years in house carpentry, he built a boat shop in 1988 on family property in West Point, and under the advice of Alton Wallace, John was able to begin building the first of his 14 West Point skiffs. After 10 years of building West Pointers, he went to work at Hodgson Yachts in East Boothbay as a boat carpenter and eventually as a project manager. In retirement, he is building violins. Gordon Moore is a summer resident of Small Point and a sailor in the Small Point 1 designed fleet. When not sailing in Maine, Gordon has made his life in medicine and in academics, as a professor at Harvard Medical School and as medical director and chief operating officer of the Harvard Community Health Plan. And Peter Blackley, but Peter's connection to Phippsburg and Casco Bay go back to his earliest childhood memories when he spent wondrous summers sailing in the family's Charlie Goombs built sloop and living in his grandfather's log cabin in Brightwater, and later through his teenage years and to the present day in an off-the-grid cottage on Sheep Island, where light is still provided by oil lamps. Peter spent much of his professional life in the field of environmental activism, and he continues to enjoy playing music, painting watercolors, and writing, and of course, sailing. Peter has a book out, Stone from Halfway Rock, which recounts a lot of his childhood memories and present day fascination with Casco Bay. So, without further ado, let's continue our conversations.
John Keys.
All right.
So, John, I've been watching you build boats for what seems like all your life, but obviously that's not quite accurate. When did you start building and start thinking about wanting to build your own boats?
Oh, I was in my early 20s, maybe mid 20s. And, the old family boat that we have, the old 16-foot West Pointer, was kind of on its last legs. Most of the frames were cracked. It was getting pretty beat up. And I met, through Stanley Keys, I met Dick Pulsifer. Stanley introduced me because he had just bought a 22-foot Hampton, the Pulsifer Hampton. And when I met Dick, he very generously offered to take the boat into his shop, and he would show me how to rebuild it. Initially it was just going to be replace the frames. And when we got the boat in there, like any old boat, old wooden boat, needed a lot more work than you first thought. So we ended up just gutting the entire thing, took it down to the bare hull, and put in all new frames. Refastened the transom, seat risers, which are longitudinal, stringers inside the boat, new thwarts, basically rebuilt the whole thing. And that got me thinking about, the process and how I would like to build one someday. So many years had gone by, after rebuilding the boat to when I got started building the West Pointers. The first West Pointer I built was 1988. And I copied Alton. I knew Alton Wallace, of course, from being in the village. I had been to his shop once or twice. So I went to his shop and asked if he would let me copy his molds. And he said yes. So I got the roll of building paper from the lumber yard and traced his molds, and he gave me the measurements on how far apart to space the molds. And, I took notes, dimensions of the keel, the stem patterns, the transom patterns, and all that. And then proceeded to, start with that. I built the strongback, which is, a raised frame that you set the keel on. And my initial thought was I just wanted to build a boat to have for myself, and I got that. That was an 18-footer. I completed that one, and a good friend of mine who I worked for doing house carpentry told me that I should not keep the first one, but sell it and, repeat that process a few times. And then eventually I'd have one of my own that, paid for itself essentially, because I would have made money from selling the first couple. So I took his advice and took the boat down to the Maine Boat Builders Show, which I think had just been going for a few years at the time. And I had the boat down there on display, excuse me, and John Bradford, who ran Sabasco Lodge, was there, and they were looking to replace their launch, which I think was an old West Pointer at the time. So um, I sold him that boat for, wasn't very much money at the time, $3,000 or $4,000, and they used that for 15, 20 years or something like that, and finally retired it. But yeah, that's how I got started. It's just, repairing an old one. And that was the inspiration to start from scratch and build a new one.
Yeah. I believe, and I might be wrong, but I believe the original West Pointer that you rebuilt was 25 years old when you rebuilt it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yep. At least.
Yep. And so, what do you remember about Alton?
Well, typical Yankee, kind of reserved, quiet, but once you got him talking, once he felt comfortable, he would dock up a storm. And when I would go to his shop, during the process of building this first boat, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was over at his shop frequently. And when I would come through the door, he would stop what he was doing, put down his tools, take a seat in his old wicker rocking chair next to the wood stove, and start talking. And usually it was, I was asking him questions about a certain step in the process or whatnot. And he would explain it, usually starting by, oh, it's easy. There's nothing to it, he'd explain the process. And, we'd talk about any number of different things. And then I'd go back to the shop and, try to remember what he had told me. But I began to realize this pattern where he would never continue working when I came into his shop. And I think after I had completed the first one, I asked him why that was, why he would never give me any hands-on, instruction. And he told me that he figured if I couldn't figure it out by myself, I had no business doing it, Okay. So he was pretty typical old school in that sense. But yeah, he was a friendly guy, generous, loved to tell a story.
Yeah.
He loved to carve wooden decoys, duck decoys. They were working decoys. A lot of the old guys in those days would hunt seabirds in the wintertime, put food on the table. And then he started carving these little half-scale models for decoration. They were just beautiful. I wish I had a collection of them. I bought a couple of them as gifts, for people. Yeah. Really nice, primitive, what we'd call folk art nowadays. But they were just working decoys, nothing fancy about them.
Yeah, very nice. Did you consider him a mentor?
Yes, not in the sense that, say, Dick Pulsifer was, in that Dick was very hands-on. He would, he'd say, okay, watch this, now you try it, that sort of thing. Dick showed me the details, the subtleties, I guess, of stripping the hull up, fitting the strip planks together, and showed me the entire process in detail. And, they're kind of not secrets, but tricks of the trade that you need to know to build a successful boat. But yeah, Alton was definitely, he was an inspiration for sure. The old wood shop with the wood shavings on the floor and the wood stove going in the corner and old tools lying around everywhere.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason we're doing this talk is to explore that tradition and to reinforce the importance of where these boats come from, and they're handmade by local people. So from your perspective, when you were building West Pointers, how important was it for you to keep that tradition alive, and was that at all part of your motivation?
It was somewhat, yeah, it definitely was. When I applied for the building permit to put up my workshop, technically it really didn't fit within the definitions of what was, allowable at the time, given the location. It was like, 30 feet from the water. But the planning board, I guess it was, they knew who I was, and I explained to them what I was going to do. I wanted to, build the West Pointers, and they took that all into consideration. And they said, "Well, what you're doing, fits with our desires for the town. We like the idea of the heritage and the tradition, and what I they classified the building as an accessory to a permitted use, I guess it was. So they let me, put up the boat shop. So yeah, they worked with me on that. It was important to the townspeople, and that was part of what I wanted to do. I liked the idea of building the West Pointers in the village of West Point. And,
Yeah.
doing them the old fashioned way. I didn't use epoxies or any modern materials. It was all native woods, and
Yep. Yeah.
so yeah, that was a good part of it.
Yeah. How many boats did you build over what, 10, 12, 14 years, something like that?
I think I built 13 or 14 West Pointers and 3 or 4, flat bottom skiffs.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. Then you moved on to bigger things at Hodgson Yachts.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Yeah.
I went to Hodgson's, and they were building a large sailing catch, 154 feet, wood epoxy. Completely different game altogether.
Yeah. Yep. Totally different game, but still, it comes from the same traditions, I guess. So
Yeah, a lot of the same skills apply. I mean, it's fitting wood together, and that kind of thing. So
yeah. Well, that actually leads to my next question. When you were building West Pointers, you're using that strip plank process. Is that what
right.
it's called? Can you explain that and explain why that's unique?
Strip planking is different from plank on frame because you're using narrow strips of wood instead of wide planks. And the planks are fastened together edge to edge. And the process is the hull is built around molds. So you start with the hull shell, which is kind of backwards from traditional plank on frame, in which you start with the frame and then plank it. So I guess you could say it's a simpler process. You just need simple molds, and then you build the hull around those, and then you frame it. The trick in it is, if you've ever seen an old wooden barrel, the staves, or the slats that make up the barrel, they are beveled and tapered, and you're doing essentially the same thing with a strip plank hull. You have to bevel the plank edges to conform to the curve of the hull, and a lot of the strips are tapered so that you work up towards the shear line. So yeah, it's kind of the same process. A barrel, of course, the staves are not nailed together edge to edge as in strip planking. Probably strip planking, one of the reasons it may have originated is it made use of narrow strips of wood, that maybe they were edgings from the sawmill. The remainder of a wide plank that was cut out of a tree that saw off a couple inches on the edges. That's one theory that I've heard. But yeah, you can get a nicely shaped hull with small pieces of wood. You don't have to steam the planks and torment them into shape.
Yeah. Well, they make for a beautiful boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of nice boats out in where we are. It's nice to see them on the water.
Yeah, and they were built probably up to 40 feet in length, is my guess. There was some pretty good size. You know, they were built as lobster boats. But yeah, strip plank lobster boats.
Yep. Neat.
20 years ago, there were, the remains of an old lobster boat up on the marsh on Carrying Place Head. And it was a strip plank thing. And there wasn't much left of it, but you could see how the strips were, let into the stem. Yeah, it was pretty neat to see, an old one that had fallen apart because it gave you a sense of how it was put together originally.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting architectural study in many ways.
Yeah,
To see the evolution of the boats and the basic core traditions from where they all begin.
right.
So you're slowly drifting into shadow, so I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
But I appreciate this. It's a great conversation, and there's so much more to do. And hopefully, by preserving these talks, it inspires people to just think twice about the boats that we do see out there, and maybe not ask questions and understand and appreciate the people who built them and kept those traditions going. So, from my perspective, I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I certainly enjoyed doing it. Um, I think I was just thinking about Alton when he started building. It was under the guidance of his father, and perhaps the father before him. But I think for them, it was just something that they could do on site with, not very many different tools. And it was a way to make a living and a way to get on the water and earn a living.
Yeah, totally. It's very
Yeah.
it had all very much served a purpose. It wasn't about creating pleasure craft.
No, no, they were definitely working boats. Yeah.
A lot of utilitarian purpose.
Yeah.
They got in the case of the West Pointers, you could really get up close into the rocks and whatnot. And
Yeah,
do what you
relatively
need to
shallow
do.
draft, very wide, stable working platform to haul traps up over the side.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. All right. Well, I appreciate the conversation, and we'll catch up soon. I'm eager to come visit you in your new home up in Sumner. It looks very sunny and beautiful.
Yeah, it's quite nice. Yeah, yeah.
All right. All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay, be in
All right.
touch. Yep.
Thanks.
Gordon Moore.
Gordon, thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time. We had a great conversation this summer, and there's a strong desire to recreate it. So I thought I'd get you on the phone or Zoom, as it were, and have another conversation with you about West Point boat building.
Happy to be here, Bob.
Great. We were interested in speaking with you because you have experience with both the small point sailboats that Charlie Gomes built, as well as the West Pointers that Alton Wallace designed and built. And just for the sake of getting our conversation going, tell us your experiences with both of those boats. What do you like about them, and what made you proud to own them?
Well, I guess like most experiences, it starts with something very personal. And then I'll go to the technical stuff after that. But let me talk first about the West Pointer. I was out in a fiberglass boat cruising around West Point Harbor when I saw this boat that really made me gasp. Beautiful lines, particularly the bow of the boat, and then this wonderful kind of flat stability, openness in the back. And I said to my wife, geez, I've just got to find out who made that boat and what that boat is. I've just got to have one of those. And it led to my identifying the West Pointer that Alton had become so proficient at building, and then enabled me to find one that was still available with its old 70 horsepower Johnson motor in the back. And I'm going to turn to my sloop. When we bought our house, I did not know there was a boat. We focused so much on where it was and on the house itself that I didn't notice that in a old garage there was a boat that was sitting under rotting canvas. And at that time, it had been a long time since I'd sailed. But the fact that the boat was there again led me to ask around, and somebody said, "Oh, this is part of a fleet." And I finally got in touch with and found the guy that was sort of keeping up the fleet. And I thought, well, gee, it would be fun to get back sailing again, which I really had not done for maybe 30 or 40 years. Rehabilitated the boat and then found this wonderful collection of the same design boat designed by Starling Burgess in 1937, all of whom competed sort of insanely every Wednesday and Saturday during July and August. Technically, I would say that the West Pointer was a work boat. There was no question about that. She kind of lugged through the water, but she was wonderfully stable. And I never ceased admiring her beauty and her lines. And it required a little bit of work to overcome the fact that she really was a series of pine strips nailed together with corroding nails. I had to overcome that. But for really 10 years or so, I just enjoyed immensely puttering around with her. And when the upkeep of the boat really became too much for me, I thought, gee, this would be terrific for kids in Phippsburg to be able to see this boat and to admire the craftsmanship that Alton put into the boat. Really quite amazing. It was said that he built these boats without power tools, and I can really believe that. He was just such a skilled craftsman. As to my sloop, I would say that just the process of rehabilitating it, which I had to do twice during the time that I was sailing, and then the thrill of learning how to sail it, were both just wonderful midlife experiences for me. And I really came to admire not only the fleet, but the enjoyment of all of the fellow sailors, and also just a tremendous respect for the 3 or 4 builders who are from the community who managed to put together these boats from the plan that Starling Burgess had put together.
Yeah, it's amazing legacy and a tremendous history, and I'm glad we're taking the time to talk about that. So, for the benefit of those of us who have only observed the weekly races at a small point, talk a little bit about what attracted you to the tradition and why that tradition, in your opinion, has lasted so many generations.
Well, first of all, we live in a house that overlooks the string of boats and the start of the race. So seduction was very near. And I think part of this is inherent cheapness. I had this boat, and the idea of having it sit in the lawn or in a garage just upset me. I wanted to make use of it. And I think that the first time that I went out, I sailed with Randy Gowell, who's from the West Point area, Sabasco to be more direct, who was the person who worked on my house. And Randy was really did the foresails. We both started out about the same level. And I think the attraction was really just the sense of camaraderie, the intensity. People were really into it, but in a fun way. And then I really enjoyed. I got a big kick out of sailing in a historic fleet. I don't think it would have been the same if I were sailing in a modern boat at a start. I love the fact that this boat had been building in numbers from 1937 up through when my boat was built, which was 1947. And each one of these boats had a family history and it had a community history. So that in some ways I felt like I was embedding myself in something that had been going on for a very long time in the Phippsburg community. and really loving be a participant in that. And of course, I got better, and occasionally I won a race or came in fairly well, and that got me going. And then it really ended up being really almost a 30-year obsession.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the winning. That must have been great. So you mentioned earlier some of the characteristics of the West Pointer on the water. Were some of the characteristics in your experiences of the sloop on the water? How did it handle? What was it like to sail it?
Well, I'd say first of all, it was an open cockpit boat that had everything on it that a more sophisticated boat has. It had a spinnaker, it had foresails, it had mainsail. It was really challenging to learn how all of those sails individually worked. And then the second challenge to see how the better sailors had worked to make these blend into real competitive stature. So the boat is a little clunky. It isn't fast, but I came to realize that it didn't make any difference that it wasn't fast, because you were competing for a number of boats with a number of boats that themselves were also relatively slow. So the excitement level was high, even though the actual speedometer probably for these boats was low. And they're a boat that is easy to sail, but they have a little bit of an edge because they were designed with a shallow keel. And they go over relatively easily if you make a mistake. And once I realized that from direct experience a couple of times, it made me a better sailor. And for the last 20 or 25 years, I no longer capsized. So there was some excitement in it. But the real clue was that they sail well. They're a sweet boat. They look great when you're looking around at your colleagues in the water, and they really challenge a sailoring in every dimension that a faster, newer boat would be likely to do.
Interesting. Having observed them from afar for many, many years, 60 years now or so, I can attest and agree with you how beautiful they are to look at on the water. They're a joy to watch. So,
yeah.
All right, last question for now anyway. I'm interested, again, from your perspective, why the West Point Sabasco small point tradition of boat building is so important in our local culture of Phippsburg.
Well, I think that the water is everywhere in Phippsburg. And whether you were fishing or lobstering or sailing, boats and the life on boats with boats was very much an important part of the Phippsburg tradition. And I really feel that these boat builders, this group of boat builders that were working between 1937 and really the late 1950s, were deeply embedded in that tradition. They were skilled, they were ornery, they were committed to their craft. I oftentimes had to laugh in the fleet because no single boat was alike. Almost every one of these boat builders decided that they could improve on Starling Burgess's design. So they vary in terms of weight and dimensions, which of course makes for a very interesting racing condition, because everybody believes that it's they as a skipper rather than their fast boat that's leading to winning races. But it's the embedding, I think, of these boats in the community, and the connection between the boats and the personalities of the builders and of the sailors who came before me and others who are currently sailing over many years, that really made it such a wonderful Phippsburg experience, and really bridged two very important groups: those who grew up and have the skills and the craft of building boats and being on the water, lobstering and fishing, and those who were summer people, but who immensely enjoyed getting out on the water in these lovely boats and competing with each other. So it was a confluence of the two that really made this so exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. The summer people and the year rounders really do come together on the water and in these boats. So the boats are a really good unifier of those various cultures of Phippsburg that come together.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
Peter Blackley.
All right, Peter. It's great to see you again. Hope
It's
you're
good to see
having
you, Bob.
hope you're having a good early winter.
Well, it's been flexible here in the temperatures. It's been
Yeah.
crazy, in fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fine. All things are good.
Good.
Mhm.
I'm glad to connect with you again and to rekindle our conversation. So, I want to start with your book, The Stone from Halfway Rock, which I really enjoyed reading, and I know a lot of other folks in the community and elsewhere have enjoyed reading it and will enjoy reading it. It's a fascinating perspective on your time growing up in Phippsburg and the boats that were part of your world. So, I want to start with a question about the book that's related to Charlie Gomes. You recount your family's decision to commission Charlie to build a sailboat in the book, and it's one of the most compelling stories. Do you mind just recreating it a little bit here for us?
Well, in 1955, I believe it was, or 56, my dates are a little foggy on this one. We rented one of the small point class boats. It was called Aaron J, which no longer exists, apparently. It was a green boat with red trim, I believe. And my mother absolutely fell in love with that boat. We just had it for a few weeks that summer. And that was my very first sailing experience, by the way, because
Yeah.
we brought the boat to the Windberg dock, and that's on the New Meadows River. And I jumped in. The sails were already up, and I went and looked over the other side. We were tied to the dock, so we didn't have much flexibility here. A gust came up, and the boom swung across and knocked me right into the water. And
Welcome to sailing.
my first lesson in sailing: keep your head down. But yeah, so my mom fell in love with that boat, and by the end of the summer, she found out that it had been built by Charlie Gooms, and she looked him up and commissioned him to build a boat exactly like Aaron J. Well, shall I go on with the story? What happened?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Because the next summer, when we got up to Sabasco to pick up the boat, the whole family in our family skiff, there was 5 of us, and plus a cat and a dog, and my mom and dad. So there's 7 altogether. And we're looking around in the little harbor that Charlie had up there, and there was no sign of this boat. And my mom was starting to get pretty nervous, so we walked up to Charlie's house, which is just up the road a piece, and found him just on his way out the door. And my mother was obviously quite anxious, but Charlie said, "Oh, the boat's down there." So, pardon me for the accent.
Yeah.
So we walked down, and he pointed to this white boat floating in the middle of the cove. My mother said, "But Charlie, that's not the boat I ordered." And Charlie says, "Elizabeth, I didn't build you the boat you wanted. I built the boat you should have." There was no argument.
Good wisdom.
Yeah. He was absolutely right. Instead of 19 feet and about 6 feet wide, this boat was 21 feet and 7+ feet wide. Had a nice big cockpit to fit the whole family. Instead of a Marconi rig, it was a gaff rig. And it was just an absolutely beautiful boat. And we still have that boat.
You do?
We still have it. And John Lentz, who took over building the Pulsifer Hampton boats, which were designed by Charlie Gooms, is now taking care of it. So it's in good hands, and we'll have it in the water this summer. And some of the folks from from Small Point, have asked me to bring the boat up and sail it with them in Small Point regattas this coming summer.
Well,
So
we'll look for you when we'll look for you when you do that.
That'll
be
look
fun.
forward to it.
Yeah. So, what was Charlie like, based on your memories?
Well, I was very young. I was only 6 or 7 years old, but I was really impressed with him. I was impressed with his hands. He had really large hands. He was not a big man. He was a wiry guy. And he wore a hat very much like this one.
Perfect. I love it.
And his knuckles were knotted. He had working man's hands. Very thin, very slender face, but very cheerful and very intelligent. I heard later that he had only a 6th or 7th grade education, had never studied boat building, but did everything by eye and by trial and error. And he built what are reputed to be the most beautiful boats on Casco Bay, including Dutch Albertson's Loa Lee, which absolutely gorgeous boat. And I write about that in my book. Eventually that rotted away, and Dutch Albertson commissioned another boat to be built exactly on those lines. And he got a couple of quotes from guys who wanted to build it in fiberglass. And I went and visited Dutch in 1996 when I was writing the book. And I asked him about, well, why did you turn those down? And he says, I didn't want no Clorox bottle.
That's funny. I love it.
You can't make this stuff up, you know.
No, you can't. That's why it's important to be there and to preserve it. And that's what you do in your book. You just mentioned you wrote the book in the 90s, but you've revised it.
I've revised it many times,
it.
actually. Yeah. I started writing it in probably, oh my God, I was in New Mexico when I started writing the book. My father, who was an editor in his early career for Reader's Digest, helped me a lot in the early days. And he kept me from being too wordy. Reader's Digest, they cut the sentences down. It's like the Ernest Hemingway school of writing, is short and sweet sentences. So he helped me a lot, and I did revise it. I published it first in 2016. Was not satisfied with the way it was published and the way it was laid out. Expanded it enormously. Is literally twice the size now, with a lot more stories, a lot more fun for me, and takes us up to the present day.
Yeah,
it includes something very important that I think is really, I hope it's looked at as a gift, which is families all over the coast of Maine are in their 3rd and 4th generations of inherited summer properties, and people don't know what to do with them. Most of them are left to families as tenants in common, legally speaking, which is a total drag because nobody has any responsibility, but everybody has all the privileges. Mm-hmm. So we faced this, and we went through quite a long process of coming to grips with how we could make this thing work. So we ended up putting both of our summer properties here in Phippsburg and in Harpswell into basically a family trust, and having a board of directors. And that way we were able to include all the extended families. Normally one member will just buy out the rest, and then it stays in that one branch of the family, but we wanted to be inclusive. So we created a board of directors, and I include a lot about that process in my book, including at the very end an appendix of bylaws that we wrote, which the lawyer we took it to thought we were nuts. But we love it, and it's worked well for over a dozen years. And we have a good working situation to manage these properties.
That's really nice to hear. Our family has been through a similar process with Caring Place Head, and we have a board of directors and multiple families and generations involved. And it's a newer process for us, but we've gotten to that point in recent years, and we feel good about it, frankly. It wasn't an easy process, but we're glad to be where we are because we feel like we've taken care of it for the future, and no one's going to buy anyone out. So
I'm so glad to hear that, Bob. A key factor that we did is in our bylaws, we created a provision that the property can never be sold for profit, and that no individual board member or member of our association could ever force a sale or become a beneficiary of financial asset. So it's a family heritage, not a financial heritage. And
we did the same thing, and we were met with some consternation by others who thought, why would you want to do that? But for the same reason. Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's probably one of the reasons I related to the book so well. It really captures a moment of history or of time in Casco Bay and the whole island culture, if you will. And I mean, you're a little bit older than I am, but you really get those early years with some strong memories and just beautiful storytelling. And your point about short sentences is exactly right. It's a very well written book. It's a very, I want to say, easy book to read, but in that sense, it flows very well. That's what I mean. It's a very readable, entertaining book. I'm really glad you did it.
Well, coming from you, Bob, that's a great compliment, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, and you're welcome. I went back to boats and Phippsburg. There is obviously a legacy down there, and I want your perspective on why that West Point, Sabasco, small point tradition of boats and boat building is so important to local culture. Why it's important. We talk about Charlie Gooms and all the other builders.
Well, back in the day, you couldn't go and just buy a lobster boat, for one thing. And, you had to build with the materials at hand for the most part. And, Charlie Goom started building in the early 1900s, maybe even the late 1800s. He died in 1969. But these boats were work boats. The Hampton boats that Dick Pulsifer has built, they're designed to be a work boat. They're pleasure crafts now. I mean, people have them and they go around and have a great time, including I have one myself.
Yeah.
They were built to be work boats, and they're built to be out in the Casco Bay. And so they're incredibly seaworthy. They needed boats that were designed and built by local people who understood the local conditions. And that's where people like Alton Wallace, is it Alton Wallace? It's
Alton Wallace, yes.
Yeah. And Brewer, Alvin Brewer, and I mean that Brewer family is continuing. You got Matt Brewer now with Casco Bay Boat Works in the same location where Charlie Gooms used to be, in fact, which is really fun for me. So, but that tradition continues. It's like these are local people building for local lobstermen, and it's not like buying from the Sears catalog, or I mean now you got Holland and all kinds of other big lobster boat builders that are building 42-foot lobster. They're almost yachts by the time they come off the floor.
Yeah.
But still, these locally built boats at that time, especially before the time of fiberglass, they were super important
and hyper local. I mean, wood from Phippsburg probably went into most of those boats.
Exactly. This was not floating down the Kennebec River. This was trees that were harvested nearby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, what is your inventory of boats these days, if you will? The Pulsifer is new to you, or the Hampton is new to you, correct?
Yeah. The Hampton boat. It was built in 2000. I think it was hull number 74 of Dick Pulsifer's continuing line of boats.
Yeah.
I just got it really in the fall. I bought it in September. I was in a hurry to buy it so I could get it in the water and enjoy it for a month. I had to pull it out.
Yeah.
It's great because I live on the Kennebec, and I have a dock on the Kennebec just above the North Landing Ramp in Bath. And so I keep the boat there. Before this boat, I had a Grand Banks 32, which is a lovely, lovely boat. Mine was a 1971. It was also wood, and it scared the heck out of me. And it was too much for me to deal with, pulling it out, because you pull it on a trailer and it's standing 15 feet. You can't draw it through the city streets without making some significant adjustments. And it ended up costing a lot of money. But it's a beautiful, beautiful boat. And I'm very happy to say that Bernie Delisle, who owns the Peace Gallery in Damariscotta, now owns that boat. And he's named it Shanti, and he's upgraded it and taking good care of it. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But I needed to find something to replace it. So I bought one of Dick Pulsifer's Hampton boats. I also have the Royal Tern, which is the boat that Charlie Grooms built. And I also have a 12.5-foot Duratec aluminum boat that was built in 1960.
Oh, wow.
So it's a great boat. Yeah. It is like the best I would like to take the lines off this boat and duplicate it because I can put four big men in that boat with my old Evinrude 19, I guess it's a 1984 Evinrude 15 horse.
Mhm.
That boat will get up and plane with that much weight in it. It's just an extraordinarily beautifully designed boat. So I'll never let that one go. But
Yeah, very cool.
I got a couple of rowboats and this and that. So
Yeah.
then my
That's,
family has boats as well. So
yeah. Well, I wondered about that. I was going to ask, the Royal Tern is yours, or is it a family
well,
boat
it's
still?
actually my family's boat, but
Yeah.
I'm the only one at this point who's really dealing with it. So we almost let it go. We almost donated it to the Maine Maritime Museum, and
Mhm.
I'm so glad we didn't. Good.
Why? I mean, I think I know the answer, but why is it important for you to have that boat from your youth still active and on the water and available to you?
I think you can relate to this. It's an emotional attachment.
Yeah.
It's like this was Charlie Goomb's boat. This was it. Charlie Goombs said it was his favorite boat. So yeah, he said it was the favorite boat. So it's absolutely a gorgeous, gorgeous little boat. And my mother's memories are tied up in it. And my mother died at a very young age. She was deeply attached to the New Meadows River and sailing on. It was that meant more to her almost than anything else. So for me, there's this family connection, the honoring my mother. My father had it restored in 2010. So there's his memory and his love of the boat as well, because he taught us all to sail.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's definitely an emotional connection.
Yeah.
And
Well, more power to you. Sorry, more power to you for doing that.
plus on top of that, it's a pleasure to sail her. She's just gorgeous and she's fun to sail.
When will you put the boats in the water in 2026? What's your schedule
As,
like?
as soon as John Lentz can get her fixed up and put her in, I'm hoping that she'll be in the water by the end of May.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that goes.
Good. Great.
He's got a lot of boats to take care of. He takes care of a lot of the Hampton boats.
Mhm.
So, and he sort of inherited the business from Dick Pulsiver, and he's completely capable of building boats. In fact, I think he's built a few of them himself. So I'm very happy to have a Charlie Goombs designed and built boat in his hands because he knows how they're constructed and he knows how to take care of them.
And that's an important point and probably a good way to end this portion of the conversation. It's the legacy continues, and it is passed down generation to generation among users and builders.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Phippsburg legacy.
Well, go to the Maine Maritime Museum and you see the really old lobster boats. They were sailing boats.
Yes.
And Royal Tern has some similarities to those early sailing lobstering boats. And I know Charlie was influenced by that.
Yeah.
So it's
You
pretty
know,
fun to see it.
yeah, those wooden boats are like folk songs. They evolve from generation to generation with new idioms, new verses added on, and adaptations by different builders, but they all come from the same place.
That's true. I added snap cleats so I could sail her single-handed. You can't imagine what it's like trying to belay a jib sheet when when you come about if you
Yeah,
don't have a snap cleat. So
yeah,
the boat used to take at least two people to sail, and
yeah.
now I can sail her single-handedly. So
Sounds good. Well, enjoy your time on the water. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Peter.
thank you, Bob. It was a great pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Okay,
All
bye-bye.
right. Bye bye.
This program was originally hosted by the Phippsburg Historical Society in August of 2025. The video interviews were then reproduced in December of 2025 and January 2026 in a joint effort of Phippsburg Cares, the Topman Public Library, and Phippsburg Historical Society as part of the Phippsburg Conversation Series. We thank you for your time and listening.